Today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating and honestly, pretty audacious piece of work from the 1970s by a guy named J.M. Hurst. His whole method, called the profit magic of stock transaction timing, basically flips conventional Wall Street wisdom on its head. So let's dive in. Let's just start with a number. $1 million. It's a nice, round, attention-grabbing figure, isn't it? But what if I told you that this wasn't just some fantasy number? This is the exact question Hurst kicks things off with. He actually calculated that if you could compound your profits at just 10% a month, you could turn 10 grand into $1 million in a little over 4 years. Sounds impossible, right? Well, Hurst was convinced he'd found the key. And here's the kicker. J.M. Hurst wasn't some Wall Street guru. He was an aerospace engineer. For 25 years, his job was working on things like radar and underwater communications. You know, stuff where you have to find a tiny, meaningful signal buried in an ocean of noise. So when he turned his brain to the stock market, he wasn't looking for tips. He was looking for a signal. Okay, so the first part of his so-called magic has less to do with genius stock picks and way more to do with pure, simple mathematics. He called it the compounding engine. Hurst's big, crucial insight is this. The biggest profits don't come from finding the next Amazon and just holding on forever. No, they come from the frequency of your trades, from how many times you can put your money to work. And check this out. This is an example Hurst used himself. Take a single stock over 70 weeks. 2 long-term trades, they'd get you an impressive 333% a year. Not bad. But by making 10 shorter-term trades to catch the smaller up and down swings, that very same stock yields over 2,000%. It's the same asset, same amount of time, but the results are just worlds apart. And this shows you the engine perfectly. Every time you have a profitable trade, your pot of money gets a little bigger, so the next trade can generate an even larger profit. The more you trade, the more powerful that compounding becomes. It's like that classic snowball rolling downhill, just getting bigger and faster with every single turn. But hang on a second. This whole idea leads to a massive, glaring problem. I mean, if you're going to be jumping in and out of the market that often, you can't just be good at timing your trades. You have to be, well, almost perfect. Exactly. This is the big objection, right? How can anybody possibly time all these short-term swings with any kind of real accuracy? One bad move could easily wipe out the gains from 10 good ones. You know, the conventional wisdom is that the market is just chaotic. It reacts to the news, to politics, to some sudden crisis, to totally unpredictable human emotions. It seems completely random. So how in the world do you find a predictable pattern in all of that chaos? Well, this is where Hurst would say we're looking at the market all wrong. For Hurst, the engineer, all that stuff we call market chaos, that was just noise. His entire career was built on filtering out noise to find a clear signal, and he was convinced the stock market was no different. So this is what he found after, get this, 20,000 hours of research. He broke down what actually moves a stock's price. He discovered that about 75% of it is just the long-term, foreseeable trend, the fundamentals. And look at that tiny little slice. Just 2% is pure random noise. But the key, the real secret to timing, is that other 23%, a predictable, cyclical motion. This is such a radical idea. It means that the headlines we see every single day, the breaking news alerts, the expert commentary, all the things we think are driving the market, are, in his view, largely insignificant. They're just part of that tiny 2% of randomness, not the big, predictable waves that actually matter. And he was not shy about it. This quote is one of the most shocking claims in his entire book. He's arguing that even the most traumatic, world-changing events barely even register on the market's true underlying structure. To him, they're just noise, and they get filtered out almost immediately by the more powerful signals underneath. So if the news isn't the signal, then what is? This brings us to the very heart of Hurst's theory, that mysterious 23%, the hidden rhythm of the market. This is where it all comes together. That cyclical part of a stock's price movement isn't random at all. According to Hurst, it's a combination of overlapping waves, or cycles, and each one has its own rhythm. And critically, these waves follow a predictable set of principles. He boiled it down to a few core ideas. The summation principle just says that the complex price chart we see is really just the result of adding a bunch of simpler, predictable waves together.
The commonality principle suggests that these same basic waves are present in all stocks. And proportionality means that the bigger, longer-term waves have a much larger effect on the price than the smaller, short-term ones. Think of it like this. An orchestra has dozens of instruments, right? Each one is playing a simple melody. But when you hear them all together, when they're summed up, you get this complex, beautiful piece of music. Hurst believed the market works the exact same way. The price chart is the final piece of music, and our job is to learn how to hear the individual instruments playing inside of it.
So, what does this all mean? What's the big takeaway from all of Hurst's work? It's really about a fundamental shift in perspective. It's a new way of seeing the market. His real magic wasn't some secret formula. It was applying the tools of signal processing and systems analysis to a field that's usually dominated by emotion and opinion. He treated the market not as a casino of random bets, but as an elegant, complex system with an underlying decipherable structure. The practical implication of all this is a direct challenge to how most of us operate. It suggests that our obsession with the daily news, with quarterly reports, with expert predictions, is largely just a distraction. Instead, he urges us to learn how to listen to the market itself, to tune out all that noise and focus on the signals it is constantly generating through its own price action, to listen to its own hidden rhythm. And that leaves us with a final, provocative thought. If Hurst is even partially right, and there really is a predictable rhythm underneath all the chaos, what would change for you? If you stopped focusing on the noise and actually started listening for the signal, what would you see differently tomorrow?